This is Horns Up. I'm Animesh, and with me is
Peter.
Why the fuck are we doing this, Peter? Why are we in a room with mics in our hands? And what the fuck is Horns Up?
Well, at least the way I look at it is we're two passionate music fans, and that's one of the things we realized are common between both of us. And it all started with a Twitter DM. And
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It started with a Twitter DM where we were discussing of all things Indian rock or Indian metal, and that stormed into basically me not being a Facebook user, missing forums from that 2000 late 90s, early 2000s scene, and I didn't have people to talk music with, and so I pinged you, and
Exactly.
we decided to do this.
Yeah. And after like weeks of discussions and trying to match our schedules and stuff, here we are sitting across each other with two mics.
With two mics in our hands, which is I actually can't believe people do this for a living, because this is uncomfortable as shit.
I mean, dude, you're talking about this. There are people who make like way more money than both of us just looking at their computer screen and call it we're vloggers. I mean, I actually, and this we can edit sometime later also, but I have to add this story. I was talking to somebody about doing podcasting and stuff like that, and he's
Huh.
like, so how many people listen to your podcast, man? Just like, back in the day, people would say, tere post ko kitna likes aa gaya on Facebook and all.
This is weird because you're saying back in the day as if posting and everything was like some way long back.
Now it's all about the Instagram stories. No one cares about Facebook anymore. But coming back to his thing, he was like, you know what you need to do, Peter? So I was like, yeah, tell me, man. He's like, you need to do Facebook reaction videos.
What are Facebook reaction videos?
So trust me, I'm going to link you also to a few because there are some of them that are really hilarious. And I'm hoping some people who at least listen to the podcast know what we're doing. And if I'm saying something wrong, please ping me at Trend Crusher on Facebook and on Twitter and tell me if I'm wrong. But the way I look at it, or the way I've watched it, is it's a guy who's watching a music video. And music video is not even what we used to watch back in the day on MTV or stuff. It's a lyric video and is reacting to the music.
So what do you analyze in that? Do you analyze the fonts?
No,
Do you
it's
analyze
like-
whether it's karaoke happening?
So
Like
it's
in the
like-
sense,
So think about it like cricket commentary,
huh?
but now for a music video.
That's what Beavis and Butthead used to do. I used to really
Yeah, but
enjoy
now-
watching them do that.
Yeah, but now it's made a comeback and there are people who are actually doing that.
But you can't be analyzing a lyric video, man.
I don't know. It's like, dude, that breakdown.
But then you're analyzing the music. You're not analyzing the lyric video.
But
I
but
mean,
that's
think of it this way: if your job is to watch a lyric video and analyze a lyric video or comment or do commentary on lyric videos, then shouldn't you be analyzing stuff like, okay, the keyframe animation of lyrics moving one frame to the other frame at the time of when the vocalist is actually singing it is slightly off, or why the fuck would they use a mirror effect or Pepira's font? Yeah, it doesn't work, man. Like, you need to look a bit cooler. If it's a metal band, if it's a black metal band, do black metal bands do lyric videos?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. Like so.
Solar DT has done lyric videos.
Oh,
I think.
you were on. Oh man, I can't believe you brought Solar Ability up.
Please, it was a fun time in my life.
And when
I
Aditya
still,
Mehta was
when Aditya,
not a vegan.
correct, when Aditya Mehta was not a vegan. I don't know if I should call him out and stuff on this at the moment, because whatever, we'll see. We'll get into because there are lots of stories that can be. I think that deserves like two separate podcasts of their own caliber.
Aditya Mehta, if you're listening, we want you on this podcast.
Definitely. We were actually thinking of having a revolving third. I kid you not, Aditya Mehta could be a lovely revolving third.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you agree?
Of course.
Cool. Okay, anyways, let's bring this back. Let's get this. Let's use this episode, what we call episode 0, to just get to know each other a little bit more. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm now that you brought up, or at least you've brought up bands. I still remember watching you, I'm pretty sure, with Right Peddlers.
Pretty sure, dude. I've only played in 4 bands in my whole life. Okay, I'll list them out for you. I've played the very first band that I no sorry, make that 5. The very first band that I played in was my colony ka band. Okay, which comprised, and I shit you not, you will react to this, which comprised me on rhythm guitar. Cool.
Okay.
Aditya Ashok, aka Ox 7 Gen.
Oh, you.
Yeah, on lead guitar.
Whoa.
Yeah, Aditya's brother, Arun Ashok. I'm guessing they
I'm
would
guessing.
share a surname, right? On vocals, and a drum machine.
Whoa.
Right.
So wait, was Arun's?
Ar-
Could he be hydrogen? I'm sorry. That's lame.
Bad. That's a bad one. Doesn't deserve any reaction. But yeah, Aditya's family and me, we lived in the same colony, same compound, which is a nice, interesting story. But I'll set that up for you a bit later.
Okay.
So let's get to know you a little bit more. We'll
Okay.
swap stories. Peter, did you grow up in a musical household?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like, for me, growing up, all my childhood memories are just like getting ready for school and the radio playing.
And what station were you tuned into, or what kind of music was being played at
This
home?
is like the early 90s. And this is one of the things I think I told the guys from Rock Machine Industry when I met them, is that I still remember listening to Top of the Rock, and that refrain was stuck in my head. And every time I listen to that song, and that's one of the things I love about music, it just takes me back to that time, like getting ready for school, hearing this on the radio. And I was like, what, 7, 8 back then. I had no idea it was an Indian band. And years later, I'm talking not even like I didn't own the cassettes. When I heard them first time on MP3s, and I heard Top of the Rock, and I was like, oh my God, this is that band. I now have kind of found it. But yeah, man, music. So I actually come from a musical family.
Okay.
And one of the tragic things I feel in my life is I never picked up a music instrument. My mom played piano. All her siblings also play the piano. My uncle plays the guitar and sings also, and he plays a lot of sessions and covers and stuff like that. So for me, music was always around, and whenever, as typical, because I'm part Goan also, so as typical Goan families, when you have your get-togethers and stuff, it's like, come Baba, you learned one new song, sing, do a performance. And that was one of those things, like we'd because we loved Sound of Music, so we'd kind of pick the Von Trapp family and kind of replicate the voices and stuff like that. So it was fun. I mean, growing up, listening to there was always the Beatles playing, and this was actually, now since Christmas is coming up, I never actually knew this until I looked up the history. But the one cassette that we had, and for those who know the Thompson cassette tapes, there was a Bashir's Christmas album.
Okay.
And it's only recently I found out that Bashir was part of the band called the Savages.
Ooh.
But I only knew him as this guy
who would sing
Christmas songs. And the tapes would only come out along with Jim Reeves' Christmas tapes. So, yeah, any time of the year, there was always something playing, like, for example, Jim Reeves or Bashir over Christmas. Beatles were always part of my childhood growing up, listening to all the different musics. I mean, that's why I've got a tattoo also of their lyrics. But, there was one of the things from my childhood that really sticks out and really had a huge impact on me was, it was 1996.
Okay.
And UB40 came down to India. And this is back when, MTV also played a huge part in our growing up.
Yeah.
And they kept having those promos, and you had that angry uncle, the lift man and stuff like that. And you had that, what, UB40, IB80, all those. That was really great. And so my uncle knew one of the sponsors.
Okay.
So I kept badgering him that, UB40. And I was a kid. I had no idea about music and all. But, because it was on TV and it was a cool place to be. So he finally actually got us like VIP tickets.
Okay.
And as a 10-year-old, watching, a band from Jamaica play like.
Shit, I didn't even know UB40 was from Jamaica.
Well, part of them are Jamaica, and then I'm realizing now they're also from the UK.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought, yeah,
But they
that's
played.
where
but,
I thought
but
they were
that's
from.
Where, yeah, but that's where they,
Okay,
all their music they kind of came up
Okay.
from. Now watching all of them perform live, and then just seeing the entire intensity, the way they moved the crowd and stuff like that, and for a 10-year-old, that's just like, whoa. And then you kind of, as you grow up, realize that those guys did that for a living. They like went to
Yeah.
different places,
Yeah.
listening to like songs like Red Wine, and then you realize that Can't Help Falling in Love is actually a cover song that they did but made even more famous than the original Elvis song. And that just had a huge impact on me. I mean, later on I kept reading because more people got into like heavier music,
Uh-huh.
and you hearing the F word was like, oh, he said F. So, or you go through that rebellious phase. So that's when I really started getting into like metal, rock, and stuff like that.
That's interesting. So you've had a very musical upbringing, and you were exposed to English music or Western music
Yeah.
at a very early age.
Yeah.
Complete flip side for me. Okay. Here is a guy who is born into a very middle class family in Delhi. Okay. I am a half and half. My paternal side is Bengali. My maternal side is Pahadi. Pahadi matlab Kumaun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am exposed at an early age to different kinds of music, but it's still Indian. So whether it be Hindustani classical, which used to be a lot of Hindustani classical, whether it be Rabindra Sangeet, right, all of that, and of course Bollywood music.
Yeah.
Weirdly, when we came to Bombay, and this is in 1994, that was the first time we bought, or the family bought. I couldn't afford anything at that point in time. Pocket money bhi nahi milta tha. We bought our first CD system, and with the tapes, right? 2 tapes. You can play 2 tapes, and you have the CD on top. Videocon ka unit tha. Anyways, I went through a phase where I think, now that I think about it, I think it was because Hindustani classical music to a kid is largely boring.
Yeah.
But I went through a phase where I shunned music.
Wow.
Okay. As a kid, my mom called me Aurangzeb. Why? Because Aurangzeb hated music, right? And hated artists. So he wouldn't let musicians come into his court, and he had banned them apparently. At least that's what history taught us. I don't know if that is actually fact or what. But I was nicknamed Aurangzeb, and that nickname stayed with me till maybe say 10 years old, 11 years old. But the household was a musical one. We would constantly be, or my parents would constantly be listening to a lot of Hindustani classical, a lot of ghazals, and the occasional Bollywood and indie pop song. English music, now that I talk to them a lot more, well, obviously when you grow up you start having different conversations. That's when I realized that they were huge ABBA and Boney M fans and stuff like that. But those songs weren't played in the house. I would only hear them either on TV, and or of course when I got access to cable TV, which was post 994 on Channel V and stuff, when you had like suddenly Macarena and Barbie Girl and Lion King and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So that's how my introduction to Western music happened. I've not grown up with it, which I don't know is, I'm guessing most Indians' ka story. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so, because like a lot of people that I speak to are friends of mine, and this is me living around the world. It's just what's happened with like rock and metal is I've always been that guy who's been the clean cut look.
Yeah.
So I always surprise people like, oh, you listen to that kind of music. Or it has that kind of stereotype. So the only time when I was about 21 where I started growing my hair out, that's when everyone was like, oh, like rocker look, metal and stuff like that. And I went through a phase where I wore a lot of black. But
I'm still in that phase.
Yeah, but I think with most people, what happens is it either comes from family, and I think that the best example is what I spoke about from myself.
Yeah.
But we don't realize it until we're much older, the kind of
Correct.
impact that has.
Of course, definitely.
And second is also the environment you're in.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
the kind of media you're
Consuming or that's made available to you, the kind of people you hang out with at school, right? All of that makes a huge difference.
I mean, talking about the kind of people you had at school, I had a friend of mine, and I'm going to give a shout out to him, Reef. But he was the first person who had like a computer and was downloading music and stuff. So he downloaded Limp Bizkit hot dog flavored water.
And chocolates.
Chocolate starfish and the hot dog
flavored water.
So he downloaded this in 2001. So we're talking like LimeWire, Napster, Hades. And he burned it on a CD.
And then you played it on Winamp.
And he sold it to me. And I didn't play it on Winamp, dude. I didn't even have a computer back then. So I heard it.
Shit.
Yeah, I heard it on like a CD player with headphones on.
Discman.
And I had to like be careful that the volume was not too loud because I suddenly was being exposed to a very different sound to me. And
was that the first rock metal album you intentionally purchased?
Yeah, I would say. But then again, this is like I'd heard like punk. Again, this is not like hardcore punk, but this is like Offspring. I'd heard Offspring.
Okay, but when you heard the Offspring, did you know you were listening to the Offspring, or that you were listening to punk rock or something of that sort?
I just knew it was Offspring, and that was it. I had no idea about punk, or I had no idea about anything like that. It was just that there was a guy who said.
How did you come across? How do you come across the Offspring?
It was just somebody in school, and so this was also the glorious phase of Planet M in Bombay, where you actually could walk and discover all these artists.
Correct.
And look into their things.
I agree. But Planet M came much later. Like for me that or this kind of a story is Rhythm House.
Oh yeah.
Because now I am sorry, I'll cut back to my story, which is Aurangzeb has grown up. He's become 10 years old, 11 years old. And now he understands what music is because he is in a Catholic school and we have music class there and we are forced to sing hymns every day as part of daily assembly. So now he knows how to basically what music is supposed to sound like, and he's exposed to a lot of Western music, not a lot of Western music, but popular Western music. And he's heard of this dude called Michael Jackson, who's apparently a great performer. So, and he's bought his first ever cassette, which is Build Up, The Lion King.
Whoa.
Right? So those are excellent songs.
Yeah.
I will defend those songs till the I'm still gutted that the new movie that's coming out, Lion King, they're apparently making it like how they made, what do they call it, live action remake.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't include Be Prepared.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't include Be Prepared. That's like the best song off Lion King, to me at least.
I don't know. Movies, I'm not one of the most.
But you've heard Be Prepared.
Of course.
Right?
Dude, the number of times I've watched Lion King.
Exactly, and that song hasn't been included in the movie. Shit. Go and fucking die, Jon Favreau. Don't, but whatever. So after that, I used to accompany. I had no choice, but I used to accompany my parents to Rhythm House. They would be in the Hindustani classical section, largely. And somehow in my head, I decided that every month or whenever we went to Rhythm House, I would pick up one Michael Jackson cassette.
Wow.
So I started off with Dangerous.
Nice.
Then I went to Bad. Then I went to History, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
And they had in a nice box. I still remember that box.
And that box. And that's the concert he came down to India for, right? He performed the History set, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember, dude.
Yeah. And that person and Michael Jackson overall, I was like, dude, ye kya hai? Ye kya cheez hai?
But I'm going to stop you. How did you pick out which album to buy?
Just visual. I don't know. I don't remember why I picked out Dangerous first. I don't know why I picked out Bad second and History third. Maybe it was because it was the easiest to reach. Maybe it was because Like I remember I had no concept of album art, vagare. Dangerous just looked cooler than
Yeah, but I don't
bad.
know. Like one thing I loved about Rhythm House, and we definitely have to do an entire episode in tribute to that.
Dedicated to Rhythm
Yeah,
House. Yeah.
because I went the last month it was there, and I took a picture outside, and I just every time I pass by it, can't believe that it's just gone. Because I remember the exact same thing like you. Going to Rhythm House was like
A ritual,
It
right? It
no,
became a
for-
pilgrimage.
for me. It was because I grew up in Bandra, so
Okay.
coming down to Churchgate and then going to Rhythm House. You didn't just do Rhythm House. You did like an entire town kind of
Yeah,
trip.
you would do an
Yeah.
entire evening around Rhythm
Yeah.
House. Yeah.
And then Rhythm House would be there. And I still remember because that was the only place as a kid I would ever see that much music.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I don't think there has been any other place that has had that kind of
Planet
collection.
MVT, and there was this store called Hero Music.
Oh yeah, the one
HIRO.
opposite. Yeah, the opposite St.
Akbar
Peter's. and-
Ali's. Yeah. Akbar Ali's Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man. So I still remember, and for me, that was the education you had. I mean, that was our internet, Rhythm House.
Exactly. That
So-
was our internet.
And if you think about it, the guy who was at Rhythm House, the music he chose,
Shows. Yeah.
the amount of impact it had on, like, not only two of us, but the thousands of kids
to a whole
or people
generation,
that went
man.
there.
To more than one generation, actually.
Like, he would be your today's equivalent of the Spotify curator who puts into like the playlist. If you think about it, I mean,
no, yeah, actually,
that
yes.
was there.
Totally
But
agreed.
I'm gonna save this conversation tribute
Yeah,
to
let's
Rhythm
save
House.
this for a Rhythm House. So that goes into our show notes. Note to self: please do a Rhythm House episode.
Yes.
Cool. Let's try and get Anand Mahindra for it.
Oh, dude, I'll
Aim
tweet
for the
you.
stars.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Anyways, so coming back, how did you chance upon rock metal? What led to you
Okay, so-
discovering that
So
genre?
I was a very curious kid,
Okay.
and I think that's something that has always stayed. So I used to
Uh-huh.
keep like looking into cupboards and find stuff, and
Okay.
so this uncle of mine who studied engineering in Kerala,
Hmm.
he had a CD cassette collection. So
Okay.
being the curious kid I was, one some afternoon I was at his house. I kind of was going through the cupboards, and I still remember this, and I still remember the artwork also. I came across 3 cassettes from all his collection that I separated and put out. The first one was Iron Maiden, Best of the Beast,
Okay.
and
Nice.
as a
I can.
kid going to a
Yeah.
Catholic school, that freaked the hell out of me.
Yeah. That artwork with all the
And then-
Eddies. Yeah.
Then the second one was Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic,
Okay.
which again was looking at the artwork because that's all I could judge was
Yeah.
like, okay, what are these guys? And the third is Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion 1.
Okay. So that's the blue one.
The red one.
The red one.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so I popped in the first cassette,
Uh-huh.
and the
What was
first
the
song,
first cassette?
Iron Maiden, and the first song I heard by them, because this is tapes back then.
And Best of the Beast.
Yeah, Best
So
of the Beast.
would
It
be what,
was
Virus
no, it was like somewhere in the middle, and it was
Ah,
Be
okay.
Quick or Be Dead.
or Be Dead. Okay.
And just hearing the initial part
Yeah.
and looking at the artwork, it just freaked me out.
Yeah, holy shit, you were introduced to an Iron Maiden song with the band going all guns blazing, Bruce screaming at the top
Yeah,
of his
yeah.
lungs. That should have scarred you.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is something I actually said to the band when I met them, that, years later, because about 15 years later, I actually met them in person when they played in Dubai. And that's the story I told them.
Okay.
It's like, I couldn't imagine that as a kid growing up, listening to them like that and being freaked out, I would actually years later go for one of their concerts, meet them in person, and then a couple of years later go for the next concert in there.
Uh-huh.
But so that kind of put me off in a way.
All right.
But I don't know, for some reason I never ended up listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I still remember that cassette cover. But what I enjoyed was Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
And for me, that has been one of those bands that has been through all those years. I don't know, if you ask me looking back what exactly it was,
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you. But it was just something about what I heard which wasn't as didn't put me off that much as
Alright.
Iron Maiden or scare me in a way, but just kind of I could relate to them. I mean, and that's the main reason I went for their show when they came down, because I was like, dude, Guns N' Roses, one of the first bands I ever heard like that, chanced upon as like a 10-year-old, and here they are playing in Bombay. I had to be there for their show. So, yeah.
So it's GNR, Maiden, and then what
Red
happens?
Hot. And
But Red Hot.
yeah, but then what happens with me,
consolidation
it was just that was the initial discovery.
Okay.
It was just those cassettes. But I didn't have like ready access to it. And since it was primarily cassettes back then, I didn't kind of like, I didn't have access to my own music system to play it on. So it just kind of ended up going back into, this is what's playing on TV. And then there was the whole boy band phase.
Yeah.
But,
boy band
those three, like even this, I'm talking almost 22 years later. That moment is still so vivid in my head, picking up those three cassettes and stuff like that. And yeah, then kind of fast forwarded all the way till almost 5-6 years later, where, people were into like, going for tuitions and stuff like that. So, hey, what you're listening to and things like that. So, okay, hey, there's the cassette, here's Offspring, seem like a cool band. Okay, let's listen to them. Okay, this is a slightly heavier version than what you're used to from the boy bands and stuff like that. But for me, really, Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water, that was the album, man. Like listening to that, just listening to the first song. I think like I listened to the first song at least thrice, trying to understand, and then also trying to wonder, is he really saying 47 fucks in this song? But yeah, man, it just blew my mind. I mean, of course, when I look back now, and I look at and I speak to a lot of people who got into metal and stuff, it was bands like this.
Yeah.
The new metal that actually kind of brought or kind of was the gateway bands for people. I don't understand why everyone has to kind of diss on that or kind of disassociate themselves with that.
Correct.
I mean, I grew up in I was listening to music in the early 2000s. I didn't have the good fortune of being in Florida in the 1980s where the death metal thing was happening and stuff.
Yeah. We aren't a product of that particular time.
Yeah. Or I don't try to kind of be that person that, I used to listen to that. I mean, come on, dude. I still remember another great memory was watching VH1 or MTV. And this is again 2001. I still remember because what I used to do was whatever I would watch on TV, I would write the song down so I can remember it. And then you wait for that last.
Correct. You wait for the titles.
Yeah. So now after listening to Limp Bizkit, what could be kind of heavier that would blow your mind? Linkin Park. I mean, dude, the video of crawling, watching it, seeing the way Chester's screaming in there, and you're just like, what? What is he doing? What is he saying? And just the wall of noise sound.
Exactly, yeah.
It was like, I was hooked. I still remember writing that down, and kind of then this is when I had some access to the internet. And this was the time where Linkin Park were at their hustling peak, I would say. Like they were pushing it everywhere. They were on mp3.com. They were everywhere.
Shit, mp3.com.
Yeah. And so that's when, LimeWire, hey, okay, crawling, okay. Then they came out with that album.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't think anyone who grew up in 2000, in that
era, yeah.
If you didn't have that album,
I'll still defend it. I still think it's a great album.
Of course. I still go back and listen to it.
One of the best debuts ever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for that time, because
just for music in general.
Yeah.
And you can't have such a strong album. Like it is a really strong album. There's no denying that fact. You can't hate that music.
Mental note, we have to do a tribute episode to Linkin Park, but definitely this is an album.
But that's the thing, right? So yeah, whatever. I don't know if I know enough about Linkin Park because those first two albums, that was awesome. But then after that, I think, I don't know, I let the metal take over.
Dude, they did an album with Jay-Z. They were doing remix albums. I mean, they were far ahead. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
they were far ahead.
Yeah, completely.
Out of any of their peers. I mean, who knows what Kid Rock is doing right now?
He politics.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, where are all their peers? Where's Aaron from what's the band that?
Aaron Carter.
No, not Aaron Carter, dude. Aaron Lewis, the guy from Stained. Where is Stained, dude?
Where's Disturbed?
Oh, that guy's taking his piercings out, I believe.
Okay.
That made the news. But we're going ahead. Tell me.
Okay, so all right. So that was your story. My story kind of similar in terms of how I got into rock, metal, etc. It started off with just increased exposure to MTV and Channel V and this channel called Channel Oxygen, which was one of those you control which music plays
Oh, yeah, dude.
by dialing in, and being online and waiting for a long period of time, stuff like that. Weirdly enough,
Mm-hmm.
so there are two parallels to this. My first exposure to rock music, or what we would define rock music to be, was through Doordarshan.
Wow.
On a Saturday afternoon, it's around, no, not afternoon, it's around 11:30. My neighbor and I, we were watching TV. Doordarshan was what we were watching. I don't know why we were watching Doordarshan. But there was the program that started was almost like a Chitrahar, but for English music.
They had like a not top of the pops.
It's not top of the pops. This is Saturday morning, 11:30 a.m. I don't know why it was broadcast at that point of time, but it was. And the video that we saw and that made my jaws drop was "Falling in Love Is Hard on the Knees" by Aerosmith.
Oh, dude, what a classic.
My age at that time, I wasn't reacting to the video as most like
warm-blooded
and
adolescents
males would, right? It was just the sound. You had this skinny, almost feminine dude, right? And you had the guitar player and the entire band. It was just a package of sheer aggression, energy,
dude, that
vibe, which was like, what is this thing? It's grating, but at the same time, it's so fucking good, right? And that stayed with me, but it got pushed back. At the same time, I was also getting into wrestling, and by wrestling I mean WWF, pro wrestling, not your kushti. Okay. I'm getting into wrestling because access to cable TV and all of that,
dude.
right? And through wrestling, you will know that all of these wrestlers have theme songs, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting hooked on to even more, because wrestling is like the best thing ever. Okay. I'm still defending that till date, and I will continue to do it for a long period of time. I don't think I'll ever outgrow wrestling. All of the top stars, at least the ones I liked, had rock music based entrance themes. Bret the Hitman Hart, his theme starts off with a guitar wail. Stone Cold Steve Austin, it's aggressive fucking ja. My first exposure to Metallica happened because of wrestling. Why? Because Sting, who was Sting, the wrestler, not the bassist, he in WCW at that point in time had Seek and Destroy as his theme.
Oh, dude,
okay?
yeah.
And I don't know who Metallica is, but I know Sting, and Sting's theme is that, and I like Sting, hence I like the theme. And I'm like, okay, this fucking sound is awesome, right? And through that comes listening to more and more and more, trying to expand. Horizon's very limited, exposure only MTV, Channel V. That entire boy band phase comes and goes. That entire pop phase comes and goes. Nothing sticks. Linkin Park comes and goes. Nothing sticks. It goes into early 2000s. You have bands like Bullet for My Valentine, who just came out with that first single of theirs.
Tears don't fall.
Shit, I can't remember the name. Something human, scavenging human sorrow. Fuck, that sounds like a death music type. Death cut type. Okay, no, whatever. So that song, okay, and I'm like, dude, this is meaty stuff.
Didn't Triple H have an intro song done by Motorhead?
That's only much later.
Oh,
That's much later. Triple H at that point in time, he was called Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
yeah.
He had very classic British music, and then later on switched to the DX song. The Motorhead things came in much later.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, all of that normal Indian music, normal exposure to music for an Indian boy, and then school gets over, college begins. At which point in time, I am left a lot to my own devices, which means hanging out a lot more with friends. And shout out to two of my friends this time, Anshul and Aditya, the Sharmas, who caught me listening to, and especially Aditya, who we called Don for some reason. He had nicknames for all of us, and he started like pushing, Acha, ye sun, abhi ye sun, abhi ye sun. Your first maiden album was Best of the Beast. My first maiden album was Brave New World.
Oh man, what an album.
And that was it. Brave New World, tape pe, pirated tape, not the original. Pirated tape dala, suna. By the time the Wicker Man came to an end, I knew that rock and metal is my place. Chhap lag gaya. Maiden is my gateway band, although I would still say that Aerosmith is the band that introduced me to the sound, but it was Maiden that just put me into that basket or into that car, and I've been running on that road or driving on that road ever since.
Dude, but now that I'm thinking about it, this was back in the day when you'd actually see metal bands on TV. You'd actually see the videos.
Very less, man. Like
There'd be promotions. Like I remember at least Brave New World, there were promotions going on about it especially in India.
Yeah.
Right? MTV or someone would plug in. Like this is when
like you would see stuff like Def Leppard all the time. You would see Crazy Town. You would see Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit. You wouldn't see. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't staying up that late.
Yeah. No, but like I still remember there was a channel when I was living in Abu Dhabi called MCM.
Okay.
And they would have 1 hour segment, which was, I guess, their version of like a Headbangers ball and stuff like that. But you'd hear all the stuff. And I realized that was the internet for us back then. You'd listen to a band, okay, take a note down, go to your local shop, see if they have the CD. Back then also you'd have very like boldly parental advisory, explicit content and stuff like that. But for me, instead of the way I look at it is, a lot of people said, "Oh, that dissuaded people from buying it." That was the stuff you wanted.
That was the stuff you wanted.
If you had that, if you had, like, I still remember the Eminem album, for example.
Yeah.
When you had the censored version, but the coolest guy in the class was the one who had the uncensored version. Similarly with like, I can't even imagine listening to like Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water censored. What the hell? And this is when really you saw how, that's where you see like technology kind of advanced. I mean, for me, it's kind of strange that while I was discovering or understanding my metal roots or trying to figuring out the metal thing, that's when I started getting exposed to like local bands. And this was the time where I was living in Abu Dhabi doing my grade 11 and 12 there. And that's when I discovered that there were bands making similar music
back home.
In
your locality.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to Pin Drop Violence. I still remember this guy in Abu Dhabi telling me, "Oh, Pin Drop Violence, I heard there's a band like this in Bombay." And then me actually looking them up. That's when, the forums were great, where bands would actually announce that, "Hey, we're playing this gig," and 200 people would show up.
Exactly.
Now, whether they came from the forums or not, but there'd be people who'd write about it on the forums and stuff. But yeah, and that was cool. Like that's when so while I started parallelly discovering bands in Dubai and Abu Dhabi where I was living, I also realized, hey, there are Indian bands
Who
doing
are doing
this.
this? Yeah.
And then soundclick.com. I mean, I still remember I have probably a CD which I burnt all the songs I could find of like Indian bands of soundclick.com, the MP3s they had, which very coincidentally was very similar to the track list that Sahil put up the Resurrection compilation. so it was like,
Hey,
and
I
of
was
course,
one of the people who went up to Sahil and said, "Can I buy Resurrection, please?" And I called him Mr. Demon Stealer. Sorry, Sahil. Actually, no, you probably still enjoy the fact that someone gave you $50 for that.
but yeah, dude, I mean, that was great to discover like local bands, and that was
so much music happening within your
Yeah.
own country, man.
yeah.
And
I think
every
it was that phase. I mean, since we're of similar age, you'd go through your. That was the like, you were so going through so much change. Metal was something that I held close, that kind of
correct,
identified
it
with.
It kind of became the place that
To me,
took you in.
yeah,
to,
that was
right?
my refuge. Really,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Refuge, perfect word.
for
Yes,
me,
it did.
sitting around
Completely for me
talking.
too.
I mean, while it was nice to sit on the forums and bitch about like, oh, your snare sounds too loud, and giving advice to bands and stuff like that, but that was the way I discovered most of these bands.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean,
same
that's
here.
why you
Same
knew.
here.
I mean, there was, and this was basically what people now call themselves the taste makers in a way. But there was one guy who'd said that, hey, you know, check out this band, or I discovered this artist. But the limitation was you had to wait like 6 hours to download that one MP3. So you'd have like, I still remember like somebody telling me, oh, there's this band Opeth, you should check them out. I had no idea what Opeth sounded like
Yeah.
until there was no way I would have heard of Opeth maybe years down the line, until this guy told me, and he said that, oh, you know, I've heard they're really good, you should check out this album.
So okay, so did you have a friend or someone who would keep introducing you to stuff? Because that's what Aditya did for me. He'd already by that time compiled quite a good collection, and he was heavily into glam, or
Wow.
what he would like to call cock rock, right? Because of course at that time and age, now that I think about it, a lot of it has to do with pent up energy,
Yeah.
right? So the kind of music he was listening to started off with cock rock at its base, and then moved on to the heavier stuff, thrash, and then moved on to death. And so Maiden, Megadeth, not Metallica, mind you, Maiden, Megadeth, moving into death, Cannibal Corpse, and then going into straightforward into DI side territory.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm trying to think like a lot. I mean, this we definitely would agree on. There's an entire generation of metalheads in India whose first introduction was thrash metal.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that was because it was still, you know, you meet that, the aggression you kind of relate to in a way.
Yeah. For that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now when I'm looking back at it, listen to any of the death metal bands and stuff like that, man. I mean, that's some like really insane stuff out there. I mean, like batshit crazy if you think about it.
It is.
What are the things they were doing?
Exactly. And then, Aditya would tell stories like he was wandering the streets of Bandra and he came across this dude, and there was this sound coming out from his room, and he's like, holy shit, this guy's listening to metal. And he goes and meets him, and the dude is like, dude, this is black metal, and this is what is true metal music, and your death metal is false and stuff.
Yeah, dude. That
Maybe he met Aditya Mehta.
No, but yeah, man. I think that's also over a period of time changed, where
Yeah, it did.
you'd or at least there was that phase where it was like, I listen to black metal, so this is exactly what I'm going to do. The lower the production of the music, the better it is.
That still exists, mind you.
But you'd still there's a lot of crossover.
Correct. No. So what I'm trying to get at is when we came into when we came in, right? We didn't have something like Google where answers were immediately made available. So
No.
I don't know, but the fact that you actually had to find out for yourself by experiencing it first rather than knowing about it, I think that is lost to a lot of basically kids these days, because kids these days, and largely I have a brother who's like 12 years younger to me, the first reaction and whatever, like just interacting with kids, their first reaction to hearing something that they don't know about is to Google it and find out what it is.
Shazam.
And then exactly. And then if they like it, or if they like what they're reading, or if they like the context, or if they whatever the context be, if it's suiting to their taste, is when they'll discover it. It's not as if people are, I don't know, but for me it was ye sun, and घर जाके या तो वॉकमैन में या प्लेयर में सुनता था, and that would be like fuck.
Yeah. No, so just like you had Aditya, I had a friend in Abu Dhabi called Neeskins.
Okay.
And so what Neeskins would do is he had access, or he knew people who had these
Access.
to, whether it was the Def Leppard, Hysteria, Iron Maiden, Power Slave. So what he'd do is he'd make copies. So a CD burner was a very
a CD
essential
burner
thing.
was a big,
A CD burner was today's equivalent of high-speed internet. So
correct. Yeah.
So he'd burn these CDs, take like a color photocopy of the artwork,
and sell
like
bootlegs.
not sell, but he'd give it to me, and he'd say,
shared
just give me,
bootlegs.
yeah. And two albums I'm definitely going to mention that he gave to me that I've listened to, I think, hundreds of times. Def Leppard, Hysteria,
Okay.
and Iron Maiden, Power Slave. Man, the thing, and plus I think it was also the supply you had, or the access you had to the music. Those two albums, the number of times I've listened to it. I mean, that's why I almost had tears in my eyes when I saw Iron Maiden playing Power Slave for the first time. I was just like, oh my God, like
It's
finally
happening.
like after
Yeah.
all these years of like just
Yeah.
listening to it and then realizing that they still kick ass, man. They still kick
Best
ass.
fucking band on planet Earth.
Duh.
Yeah. There's no, there are a lot of close calls, I would think, but now that I think about it, but to me, still number one.
Yeah. I mean, so that was the thing. So Neeskins played a very important role. He, like, I still remember
Shout out
him.
to Neeskins.
Yeah, man, Neeskins. He introduced me to Slipknot. This was back when they were really heavy.
Yeah.
They weren't doing all the stuff that they've been doing recently. But and then it just went into, hey, okay, and he'd go through like phases, and he'd be like, hey, check, just like Slipknot, there's this other band, Mushroom Head. What? Mushroom Head? Okay, so we'd go look up this band. And so this is your local
exactly, right?
local
You had
equivalent.
that much time and you wanted to use it discovering new things, just forming your own identity. And
Now I'm going to mention another band which I'm probably sure you haven't heard for many years. Another band I still remember him introducing me to was Kitty. And I mean, think about it, dude.
Yeah, you are right. I haven't heard of Kitty in a really
Dude,
long time.
When you're a 16, 17-year-old, you see there are 4 women. And this is like before it became about all gender equality and stuff like that. But just the idea of 4 girls playing heavy down-tuned music. This girl screaming, screeching, and you're just like, how is she like even
doing
making
that?
these? Yeah,
Right?
that's your initial reaction.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like, I can't even believe I said Mushroom Head because I haven't heard those guys in a long time.
I didn't know Mushroom Head existed until a couple of years when they reformed.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't know that.
the thing, and if you see
But yeah, it was essentially Slipknot but with different masks, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, if you look at that was a shock value. I still remember him like giving me a Marilyn Manson album.
Holy shit, yeah.
Dude, and see, so if you see the whole trend, this was shocking stuff.
It was shocking
As a
stuff.
16, 17-year-old, you
Yeah.
want, and subliminally you're exposed to such stuff. You're just like, your mind is in hundreds of different
the mind
places.
keeps on going like, okay, what's the next level?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
what's the next level?
Yeah.
Right?
And then of course, because of Glenn Benton, we heard of Deicide and this guy who had like branded himself
cross,
Antichrist and stuff like that.
It blew your mind, right?
Yeah.
It did mine.
Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't believe things like that were happening and were allowed and were a business.
But then, listening to stuff like, again, Priest, not so much. Priest I've picked up over the last decade or so.
Same here.
I don't know why Priest has never
Priest
been
has
like
never been, for me either.
a gateway band.
The gateway band, or
I
even a
think-
seminal band.
Yeah, but if
I
you think-
recognize what they do and they're brilliant at it, but that connection was never there.
Yeah. But again, another band I still remember, and this is like taking me back so many years. I still remember Neeskins, me, and a bunch of other friends sitting and watching. And of course, this memory was refreshed thanks to Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie. We sat and watched Live Aid. I'll have to correct myself, but I'm going to say this both. We watched Live Aid. We watched Remembering Freddie, the tribute to Freddie.
Okay.
And so I think, it's the tribute to Freddie they did after he passed away. And we watched it on laser discs. Yeah, it's been that long. But we sat and watched it. And so the thing is, while I listened to a lot of Queen growing up, you never really kind of realize the impact, or you'd hear the stories growing up in Bombay, Apro Freddie, Freddie Mercury was just one of the Parsi guys here and stuff like that. But when I watched the tribute show to him, man, and you see the way all the bands perform the Queen songs, singing their heart out, seeing Axl Rose, seeing Elton John, seeing the Queen band members like playing to their brother who they lost, man, that it really, even right now, it leaves goosebumps thinking about it. And that was one of the things, you have to enjoy, it's a similar thing like when I went to watch Bohemian Rhapsody now. Watch it with a bunch of friends. That's the beautiful part about music. We all went back sharing notes. Hey, have you heard this Queen song? See what Freddie did in this. Oh, do you know on this album they played no synthesizers. They said it's only like pure rock music.
Getting to know the stories behind the music, right? That was another thing. Yeah.
And I think what happened, or at least for me, music discovery was cool, is it's never always been just about the music. It's all about, understanding what they were going through. What was, the scenario. I mean, even when I look at like the 90s, 80s explosion of death metal in Florida, it wasn't just Florida and it just happened to be there. There's a reason why all the bands went there.
Yeah.
There was the whole Florida sound, death metal sound.
It's a product of its times.
Yeah. And no matter what you do, I don't think they'll ever be able to replicate it. I mean, I don't even think they get Morrison's sound back, the exact same console. It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen again. It's lighting in a bottle that was captured at that time. It's never going to happen again. All right. So we've been droning on for a really long time. So let's try and I don't want to call it wrap things up, because it just feels like we've started to have this conversation.
Yeah, man. And this is the beauty of things like music, and it could have been
Yeah. But if you're going to be doing this every week, which I think we are, then we need to reserve our materials, right? So let's quickly do a couple of rapid fire questions. Haha.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So Peter, are you ready? First cassette that you ever bought?
First cassette I ever bought was Offspring Americana.
Was that truly the first cassette? Because for me it was The Lion King, but first...
I had no pocket money, nothing growing up. That was the first.
Okay. First rock or metal cassette I ever bought? You'll kill me. Brahma Reborn.
Guilty of the exact same thing, so I'm not going to say anything to you.
Okay.
I actually bought it on CD, And guess what is the second CD I bought along with it?
The second CD.
Yeah, which is CD. Indian,
Indian CD. At that time, Metakix headlines.
High five. No matter what you say about Metakix, I'm still yet to see an Indian band that puts out artwork like that album.
Headlines was crazy.
Yeah.
I agree.
It was the entire design, dude. It wasn't just the cover.
It was very well done. Hats off to Zomb, but the guy knew how to project a metal band.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
or even a hard rock band.
Dude,
he did it with the second album too.
Yeah. Pick up that CD. Definitely it's going to stand out.
Yeah, definitely.
In a place
even the logo, everything, the fact that it almost sounds like Metallica, Meta Kicks, whatever. The logo is also similar-ish. All right. First CD you bought?
First CD. Uh, I would say I think I pretty much started picking up CDs of Indian bands because they were cheaper, man. So yeah, you heard it. I actually on a trip down picked up Brahma because I read it was heavy and also Metakick's headlines.
Okay. First CD I ever bought in my life was the soundtrack to Rangila.
Oh man.
I still like that soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
But first rock metal CD that I ever bought was probably, again, this is purely to do artwork, Slayer, Elevates, and also because of the reason that it was only for 150 rupees, while all the other Slayer albums were like 300, 400 bucks.
But you know, I must add this point. I just realized over the years, and now as a marketing person, none of these guys get the point of pricing. And
yeah, right?
you can just see the similar. The only reason I bought Indian band CDs because they were way cheaper,
Because they were
man.
cheaper, yeah. Of course.
Do you remember when CDs were 750 rupees?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So many potential albums that we couldn't buy.
Yeah. I mean, the number of times I saw the Limp
I used to
Bizkit
buy a
CD.
lot of cassettes only because of that reason. 125 bucks a month.
Yeah.
Dude, I would save 3 weeks of pocket money to be able to buy one cassette.
Yeah.
125 bucks a month, man. That was a luxury.
Yeah.
But through that, discovered a lot of bands.
Oh yeah.
Okay, first ever concert that you attended. It would be the
UB40.
Yeah, the UB40 one.
concert.
First ever rock or metal. No, sorry. First ever Indian band concert you attended.
I have to come back to this and I'll say it. But so I got into the Indian scene kind of much later
Okay.
because I just
Yeah.
missed
you
that
weren't
entire.
here. Yeah.
I wasn't here. So the 4 bands that were playing the concert that I attended. First one, Eggless Love Cake.
And,
Second, Bitch Slap.
Bit Slap. That very good band.
Skin Cold.
Even better band.
Amidst the Chaos.
A band that doesn't actually get the credit it deserves.
Yeah, dude. Now, the reason why I'll never forget this concert is that's the concert that I met my wife for the first time at.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So-
Okay.
So, yeah. So, it's crazy, man. That I mean, of course, back then, this was again Raz. And I think we'll have to do like 3 episodes talking about the glory days of Raz. But for me, coming down, this is when I lived in Canada. Came down and someone said, there's a gig. Okay, show up, went to Raz. I think entry was 150 bucks. Walked in, you see these bands and, you know, the whole thing was built up online as such a great thing. Because, again, my first concert internationally, so I'd been for more concerts internationally before my Indian. So it was like, okay, a bit of a reality check. This is a banquet kind of hall kind of scenario. And see, what most people don't realize now is everything was kind of DIY back then.
Yeah.
There was no like, you know, stage. I don't even remember if there was a stage at that show, but I just remember the lighting being there. And what I feel also bands take for granted today. Because, मेरे पास 7-string guitar है तो
Yeah, man. At that point in time.
And that's what I loved about the scene back then. Everyone was hungry. Everyone kind of like performed their hearts out, even though it was like 25, 35 people who came from their college to kind of support
I
them.
think that still exists.
Hmm.
But of course, that's again a product of the times, right?
Yeah.
I keep going back to that, but that really explains a lot
Hmm.
because at that point in time, very few people could actually get guitars and good guitars.
Yeah. Well, good fun, man.
or music equipment, right?
Yeah.
Today it's a lot easier. Technology has made it a lot easier to perform and for everyone to be at least at one level or one pitch or to be at least musically literate. Anyways, my first concert would have been some Hindustani classical concert. I think I watched Zakir Hussain perform at Banganga.
Wow.
Which is truly awesome. I watched Zakir Hussain again this week. The guy's talent is off another level. He, as a man, is just a superstar. There's no reaching him. The first local concert I ever attended was, I don't know. Why do I feel it's? I'm remembering Launchpad, the Launchpad big concert, which had a lineup of Them clones, yes. Helga's Fun Castle, Zero, and Pin Drop Islands, and to top it all off, Tata Young.
Oh yeah.
So that was probably the first local concert I went to, and then after that followed the Raz gigs. Yeah, where you saw bands like Xenon. So cool. First international act you've seen live is UB40. First international act I've seen live is
Maiden, I'm guessing.
Tata Young, man. Shit.
Oh yeah. Dude,
Holy
you never
shit.
went for the Michael Jackson concert? Never managed to try getting?
No, Michael Jackson for me at that time wasn't like when he came down to India. I don't know. It never struck me of that. अरे ये show है मैं जा सकता हूँ.
Oh, the possibility was
The possibility itself didn't never struck up in my head because I was happy with my own life of coming back home from school, doing homework, going to play, coming back home, eating, sleeping. That was life. I never thought that a possibility of acha we can go for a concert ever existed. We've recorded well over an hour now. I think it's about time we leave or just shut up. It's getting tiring.
No, we could break this up in segments.
Yeah, let's break this up. At the moment, where can people find you at, Peter, online?
So, I don't know how we never did this in the start, but
You did it in the start, I didn't. Generally reserve it only for the end.
okay. So, you can find me as Trend Crusher on Twitter. I also blog on WordPress, so just look up trendcrusher.wordpress.com. And so I also contribute for a few webzines. We leave it on as show notes, but you can just kind of follow what I'm listening to, what kind of bands are going to release new stuff and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, and I'm at Asmo Annie, that's ASMOANI on Twitter. I don't have Facebook, I don't have Instagram, I don't care. Yeah, that's about it. Let's leave them with what are you listening to or what did you listen to in this week?
Wow.
The one or two albums that you have checked out and has left a good impression on you.
So I've got 3.
Okay.
One is a band from New York, Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
They're called High Cost.
Okay.
I definitely think this will be up your alley. This is grindcore, but also kind of veering into the power violence
Okay.
thing. And yeah, I've been listening to them a lot. I did an interview with them. They're really cool guys. Actually, I got onto them thanks to this label, which is a cassette-only label out of Louisiana.
All right.
So they kind of send me their promo, and yeah, definitely I'm going to leave a link. Check out High Cost. Second band that I've really been listening to a lot is Psychroptic from Australia. I'm really glad I got to see them last year when they did their tour across India. Their new album, As the Kingdom Drowns, brilliant. I mean, the only way I can describe their riffs is elephant stomping riffs.
Elephant stomping riffs.
Yeah,
I love that
like
phrase.
Heavy as fuck. I mean, and it's from the first minute. There's no like, your acoustic intro kind of easing you in. This is like straight in your face. Everyone who loves death metal, I know they get tagged as like tech and stuff like that, but come on, dude. Even those guys who love their meat and potatoes death metal will enjoy a good riff like this. And
all right. What is the band name again?
Psychroptic.
Psychroptic.
Yeah. And just to kind of ease it up, because I'm not always like heavy. There's a Texas band called Hinayana.
Okay.
So they're like melodic death metal.
All right.
Their new album, Order Divine.
Okay.
Again, the label kind of sent me their promo, but just to like kind of get a little feel of everything, because you can't always be listening to like really heavy stuff. So yeah, these guys are a good thing to add to the mix. And yeah, I mean, for people who like melodic death metal, early Swedish sound, your Dark Tranquility, Soilwork, there. But this is far more melodic than that.
All right.
So definitely, these are the 3 albums I'd recommend even others check out. and I've been listening a lot to.
Okay. For me, it's been this week was dominated by Nita Strauss, who is currently the guitar player for Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
and she released her maiden album, first ever album this week, which was called Uncontrolled Chaos. Sorry, no, Controlled Chaos. Sorry, yeah, forgot about that. But yeah, instrumental guitar music, straight up meat and potatoes guitar instrumental music, more in the veins of Satriani, not as much Steve Vai, but I think she likes the Steve Vai sound more. I don't know if that makes sense. So what I mean is the song structures are more Satriani than Vai, but the guitar playing is more Vai than Satriani.
Okay.
Makes sense?
I need to check this album out.
Check it out.
Yeah,
Check it out. It's a very short listen, around 35 odd minutes in and out. Decent stuff. The other thing that I've been listening to is this album by a band called Greta Van Fleet.
Lot of talk about them.
Yeah, lot of talk about them. It's I decided to check them out because I just went on a spree of what's happening in the music scene at the moment, and their name kept popping up. So I heard Anthem of the Peaceful Army, which is their latest release. I'm still digesting it, so I don't have immediate reactions to it. For me, it seems like every other Led Zeppelin clone. But I don't know, like I'm still to find that earworm from it. And the third album that I revisited quite a lot is Pig Destroyer's latest, which was Head Cage. What a fucking brilliant album, right?
Yeah.
It delivered. It's got a lot of flack from
I
people.
don't know. I don't get it.
I don't know why, because everyone's still expecting Pig Destroyer to do what is that? Terrifier Part 2 or something.
And I don't know. We definitely have to explore this more on the podcast when we're discussing like latest acts. But I just loved Head Cage, dude.
Head Cage was a brilliant album. It's got a great sound. It's got a new sound.
Yeah.
The addition of the bass player and the addition of the electronics samples, etc., is just opening up the boundaries of what that band has been capable of. And I think it's a great step that they are not just doing grindcore riffs all the time.
Yeah, and it also not only surprises you but keeps you excited for a band like this. What's next for them?
Exactly. And the fact that, that's the point, right? It all comes back to being Pig Destroyer. No matter what sound they try and explore, it's just, it's Pig Destroyer.
Yeah.
There's no other.
JR is one twisted guy.
That entire band itself is twisted. Hats off to them.
Yeah.
One of the best acts I've ever listened to. I yet to watch them live. I hope I get to watch them live. So yeah, that's a wrap. I think this will be a format that we kind of stick to. Let's leave people with what we've been listening to in the week.
We'll definitely make a playlist for this, so you can check out that.
You do that. I don't have time to do all that shit. Whatever. No, I'm kidding. Please do check out the playlists. Peter will put them up in the show notes below. You have our Twitter IDs, etc. If you want to reach out to us, do let us know if this works for you. Actually, I don't care if it works for you or not. I just want to do this because I think it's great for me to do this. I'm actually feeling a lot better after doing this. So thank you, Peter, for subjecting yourself to this.
No, it's good fun, man. At least you get to debate, discuss, learn, discover.
Exactly, right? Discover. Just get back some of that familiarity and that. Yeah, it's good shit. So that was Horns Up, and with that, we're out.